What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review a mixtape by Funk Volume. Basically, this project is called Funk Volume Presents Nene, and it came out in the late winter of 2014. Now, this is a particularly kind of secret mixtape, I'd have to suppose. This was also released as an album in early 2014. It's also released for retail if you want to purchase it, but I found the mixtape of it. Dat Piff had a mixtape of it back in the day. This was kind of like a low-key project that Funk Volume kind of did with like Hopsin's label and that type of stuff just in the early, just kind of in the early mid 2010s. So I don't think Nene was ever on Funk Volume, the label, as far as being signed to them and that type of stuff. But he did have some minor kind of affiliation with them, but he did have like some minor affiliation with them in like late 2013, early 2014. I'd have to suppose it's a pretty good. So it's a pretty good concept to kind of see some of this. This is damn near like a Funk Volume kind of compilation. Hopsin is on this project twice out of the 6 songs on here, and Swizz is on here 4 times out of the 6 songs on here. So it's a pretty good concept. One of which of these 6 songs is a remix or an extended version of that. One of the 6 songs is an extended version of one of the songs that's already on here, but it's still a pretty good concept to kind of see this sort of stuff. So yeah, once again, there's not a ton of information. Once again, there's not a ton of information about Nene. He doesn't have a wiki article about him. There's not really a ton of articles really written about him. I know he's at least dropped like an album or two, something like that, 2016, 2018, some of those type pitches. I know he might have like a small handful of projects. This may be his only Funk Volume affiliation. He may not have affiliated later on with Hopsin, but I would have to say it's a pretty good concept to kind of see this relative debut. I don't know if this is like his full-blown debut, but it seems like it kind of was. He kind of talks about high school a little bit on this particular album, so I'm wondering if he was like 18, 19, 20, 21, something like that, as this particular project was coming out, and as to when this project was coming out in early 2014. So it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this particular one. I feel like Nene is a pretty good rapper. He keeps up with Hopsin and Swizz as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens. I mean, Hopsin was basically in his prime in early 2014, but I would have to say it's still a pretty good concept to kind of see some of these spooks of like songs, and Swizz does a pretty good job on this. Really, the Swizz songs on here, Swizz really helps contribute to this particular project. It almost feels like a Swizz project in like a minor sense, just because he's on here 4 times, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept to kind of see these team ups. It's really like the concept of this being like a Funk Volume kind of compilation, but there were 2 music videos released for this particular project, so it's interesting is because I kind of feel like some of these kind of felt like mixtape type songs as far as that pitch kind of happens. I swear I've heard the Blame Him beat before. This really feels like a Dr. Dre type beat, something that like Ice Cube or Dr. Dre would have done back in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. And then I know the song I Hear Them was a Kid Cudi song originally that was meant for Eminem as far as that pitch kind of particularly happened back in the Relapse days. So it's an interesting concept. Definitely enjoyed that one. Has a very excellent beat. I feel like I Hear Them is probably like the best beat on the whole project, but that's not really saying much just because this whole project is pretty excellently produced. This mixtape's going to get a rave score. Definitely a little burst of energy on this particular debut that just really kicked ass. This would really have to say that this is like a sheer burst of energy that just did a lot of things right, and it's pretty much like what I'd say it's like a damn well classic, despite how low key it is and how it feels like despite the fact that it feels like minimal amounts of folks would know about this particular project. So we'll go ahead and talk about the 2 music video songs on here. Basically, if you look up Nene's YouTube, you can see that Blame Him with Hopsin and then I Hear Them with Hopsin and Kid Cudi are basically the 2 songs that had music videos for them. So Blame Him is a pretty excellent one. This is like a very Dr. Dre like West Coast beat, I'd have to suppose. It's like a low down kind of game. This song is like a song that gives some low down game as far as that type tune kind of particularly kind of happens, and this is just like a straightforward blaze of like a song. I would definitely feel like this is just like some simmering kind of 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock p.m. type evening sunset type stretcher of like a summer type haze of a pitch, I'd have to suppose. Really something that feels like Dr. Dre would have had for like Detox or something like that, or this feels like an Ice Cube song, something of that pitch, something that would have came out in like 2010, 2012, something of those sorts of pitches. But it's a pretty good concept. Hopsin and Nene do a pretty excellent job with this particular one. They kind of make it their own. I do feel like Funk Volume was kind of on the West Coast, so it's a pretty good concept to hear Hopsin on these type of beats, just because he works pretty well with it. He was signed to Ruthless Records, so it's kind of a good concept. Nene's pretty good. I mean, he does pretty good concept. He reminds me of like a more middle class type version of Ritz or something like that. Just one of those type pitches. He can rap pretty well. Maybe like the White Swizz, something like that. I'd have to suppose is a pretty good concept to kind of get that particular. I mean, he fits right in with like these Funk Volume folks. So it's a pretty good concept to kind of see some of that. And then I Hear Them was the other song that had a music video for it, so that is on Nene's YouTube, so you can check it out. But basically, this is like a classic Eminem and Kid Cudi type beat. I'd have to suppose really like the concept of them doing this particular song. I wonder if they actually got the rights to this particular beat. Because it's pretty awesome to kind of see this. Hopsin and Nene fit this song pretty perfectly, I'd have to say, and this is just a really malaise type bop. So this beat beat and song is just really malaise. It reminds me of something that would have been off the Relapse type days. It's something within a darker type pitch and an overall just anguish type feel. This has a pretty good pitch. It's great for like 5:30, 6:30 p.m. something in that type pitch as far as that particularly kind of happens. I really do wonder if Kid Cudi gave Hopsin and Funk Volume the rights to have this particular song. This is a pretty excellent one. It was kind of an underused beat. It was kind of a song that just didn't get used, and that was a vast disappointment because this production was just so excellent on here, and the hook was on here even, and the hook was pretty good on there originally also, and it's a pretty good concept. Hopsin contributes to like the new hook. I mean, it has a Kid Cudi hook. The song has a Kid Cudi hook, but it also has like a Hopsin hook kind of on there melded to it, so it's a pretty good concept. Kind of get that. Hopsin kind of turns into like some knock madness. Hopsin kind of turns into like some gazing at the moonlight and raw and knock madness like anguish as far as that pitch particularly kind of happens with it. So it's a pretty good concept kind of see there. Then the other 3 songs, basically I recommend all 6 of the songs on here. There's 8 songs on this particular mixtape or album, and there's 2 interludes and skits. So minus the interlude and the skit on here, that would narrow it down to 6 songs. I have to say I recommend all 6. Basically, to talk about these, I talked about 2 of them, so I'm going to talk about these other 3 songs. Basically, Dedicated is a pretty nice one. This is like a dope kind of homely introspection of a song. Basically, Dedicated is like some dope homely introspection of a song. I'd have to say this song has characters pretty good at that particular concept, and this is some similar pop rap feel to like B.O.B. hits, I'd have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept. I do like the fact that Nene pulls off some B.O.B. type vibes. There's a couple songs on here that just remind me. Of like the adventures of B.O.B. type days, maybe a little bit of Strange Clouds, some of those type pitches. I really feel like Nene probably would have been like a pop rap type dude. I mean, really, it kind of seems like Nene was going for more of like a pop rap type approach, just with like the Funk Volume imprint, I'd have to suppose. It's a pretty good concept to kind of get that particular type stuff. There's at least 2 songs on here. Dedicated and Monsters Remixed is definitely Dedicated and Monsters Remixed both remind me of something that B.O.B. would do just within that pop rap sense. So these are some good makeshift kind of commercial rap type tunes that really work pretty heavily. It's just a good concept. Swizz is on both these, and he some pretty good commercial rap type feels to get Swizz on as far as that pitch can happen. So these are just some nice ones. Really enjoyed Dedicated. It was just kind of a good Dedicated was just a good amalgamation of some extra character on here that was just kind of an extra kind of album cut that worked pretty well, I'd have to suppose. That's a nice one. Taste of Fame is a pretty good highlight. This is like a warped kind of low-key nightclub turn-up of a song, I'd have to say. This is like some good stunt flash to pull up sparkly too, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to kind of get that one. Definitely enjoyed this one. This is definitely like a flex song, I'd have to say. If you do like some pull-up type music and you just want it on like a free mixtape, something like that in a more underground type sense. I mean, this is not like French Montana, Waka Flocka Flame, Future type pull up or Jeezy type pull up as far as that pitch kind of happens, but this is definitely some pretty good concept just in like an underground sense. So I do like some of these kind of more urban and like a middle class type sense, this pull up type tunes that work pretty well. This is a pretty flashy one. This is definitely like one of the flashiest songs on the whole tape, I'd have to suppose. It's a pretty nice one. So Taste of Fame, Swizz and Nene do a pretty excellent job on this particular song of really getting some pull up flash. That's a pretty nice one, I'd have to say. And then Monsters Remix is another good highlight. This is like a 2010s rap makeshift stretcher of a song, I'd have to say. This is pretty similar to B.O.B.'s Airplanes and like some Deuce stuff from Hollywood Undead, I'd have to say. Definitely like some Deuce stuff from Hollywood Undead and just like some Deuce solo stuff as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. So this is a pretty hooky song. Definitely like the hook on here. It's just a real excellent one. I don't know where the original Monsters came from. I don't know where the original Monsters song came from. I don't know who had the original version of that particular song and who particularly did it and just that sort of stuff. I would have to say I'll have to look it up, something like that. We'll have to see about it. But the Monsters remix is definitely pretty excellent. I feel like Nene and Swizz do a pretty excellent job on here. It's just a good concept to kind of get some 2010s rap makeshift, I'd have to suppose. So these are some good commercial ones. I definitely would say if you're looking for more commercial rap, just like similar to early 2010s, like Recovery and B.O.B. type stuff, I'd have to say it would definitely be in Dedicated and Monsters Remix. If you're looking for like a good pull-up song and just some mixtape sparkle, I'd have to say that Taste of Fame is a pretty good example of that. And if you're looking for like some West Coast type feels and just overall more Dr. Dre, Eminem type feels with some Hopsin on there, I'd say Blame Him and I Hear Them are some nice ones. So it's a pretty good concept. This is an amalgamated mixtape, so I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like a 10 out of 10. This really hits that heavily. There's a sixth song on here called the Taste of Fame Extended Song, which is basically it has the Swizz and Nene verses on there, and then it has an extra cat on there named Dills, which is pretty good. So I like the concept of getting all three of these folks on here. The first two verses, Nene and Swizz, are the same, but it just has that third cat on there that kind of helps it. So it's another song to kind of have if you like that song, if you just want a further particular song with those artists on it. So that's basically the concept. So I liked all six of these songs on here. It gets a 10 out of 10, all six of them. either version of Taste of Fame works, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good concept to get that. So the social score, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10 also, just because this hits particularly heavily. Actually, I think I'm going to give the social score like a 9.5 out of 10, because this does have some quality on here, but I just think it's so low-key, and just overall the fact that this just seems like out to the wayside, and maybe the vast majority of folks wouldn't particularly know about it. It's just kind of the concept. I mean, the songs are quality on here, and it has some pretty good pitches, definitely some turn-up songs, some good Hopsin verses, some good Swizz verses, some good Nene, some good Hopsin verses, some good Swizz verses, some good Nene verses, some stuff like that. Just some overall good affiliation, especially for a free mixtape. This works pretty well. It's just the fact that it's so off to the wayside, and it just feels very less likely that folks are going to full blown know about it. I mean, Nene, after being, I just don't know how much commotion Nene has really caused in recent times. I'd have to suppose that's kind of the concept about it. So it gets a 9.5 social, but it's still pretty excellent tape here. It has some of the most recent, it has some relatively recent kind of funk volume affiliation, and this is an official mixtape by them. So it's a pretty good concept to kind of check this one out and see what's. So it's a pretty good concept to check this one out and see what's up with it, I'd have to say. So I do appreciate that quite a bit. In terms of the future, I'm not really sure what Nene has been up to. Like I said, he's pretty minimalist in terms. Like I said, he's pretty minimal just in terms of overall commotion as far as that pitch kind of happens. He's more of like a way low key kind of rapper, pretty much on like Swizz and Hopsin kind of territory, I'd have to suppose. That's the concept about it. But I do highly recommend this tape. I'd have to say it's a pretty excellent concept to get some funk volume affiliation. The fact that this is official is pretty awesome. So I do highly recommend this, and I would seek it out despite how low key and minimal it kind of is.